Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're here because today we're going to flip a massive, frankly dangerous misconception completely on its head. For the longest time, environmental compliance has been treated like this soft, feel-good CSR initiative. Plant a tree, take a photo, move on. But as you're about to see, it is absolutely not that. It is a hard, unavoidable financial liability. Today, we're breaking down exactly how the environment stops being just someone else's problem and starts becoming the main event on your quarterly earnings call.
55 million pounds. Take a second to let that number sink in. That is what Shell paid in a single settlement to the Bodo community in Rivers State, Nigeria, after decades of oil spills just absolutely devastated their creeks. We're talking over 7,000 spills in the Niger Delta since the 1950s, averaging around 240,000 barrels a year. When a local fish farmer wakes up to a pond completely covered in crude oil, that environmental damage scales up incredibly fast to a colossal legal and financial cost.
Now, you might be thinking, well, that's Shell. They're a multinational oil giant. I just run a mid-sized operation. Look at this real, incredibly visceral post from a Nigerian business owner on Nairaland. After 8 years of running a plastic container factory in Kaduna, the regulator NESRA showed up. Improper waste disposal led to a 4.2 million naira fine and his factory getting sealed. He wrote, "This thing I've scattered my quarter profit." That sheer panic? That is the visceral, everyday reality of ignoring compliance.
Okay, so for your MIVA exams, this explainer is going to use a powerful 5-step formula to help you secure a distinction. Define, model, apply, friction, and conclude. Let's get right into it. Starting off with steps 1 and 2, defining and modeling the compliance framework.
I love this analogy. Think of a business as a tenant renting a shop in Alaba Market. In this scenario, the environment is the landlord providing the land, the water, and the raw materials. Biodiversity loss? Well, that's simply the tenant destroying the landlord's property, pouring harsh chemicals down the drain, digging up the foundation. Eventually, what happens? The landlord calls the lawyers. That legal agreement you just violated? That is regulatory compliance in a nutshell.
Academically speaking, biodiversity is the variety of living organisms in an ecosystem. But when business operations destroy this, it instantly becomes an input cost issue. If deforestation strips topsoil, cocoa yields fall. If water is polluted, local fishing collapses. The Environmental, Social, and Governance, or ESG framework, essentially positions this environmental performance as a direct, measurable indicator of a firm's non-financial risk.
This ESG framework really operates through 3 interconnected mechanisms. First up, regulatory compliance. You obey national laws, or you face facility closures. Second, financial risk. You have to account for remediation costs and litigation as actual balance sheet liabilities. And third, capital access. Your ESG performance literally dictates your access to international capital. If you want institutional investment or to issue something like Access Bank's recent $50 million green bond, ESG compliance isn't optional, it's completely mandatory.
Moving on to the next part, proactive versus reactive compliance costs.
Let's put some hard numbers to this, just to provide that quantitative evidence you need for a top-tier exam answer. Imagine a medium-scale food processing plant in Onitsha. They're generating liquid and solid waste and pulling in an annual revenue of 800 million naira.
The math here is actually a visual shock. If this company acts proactively, hiring consultants, installing an 18 million naira wastewater treatment facility, their total annual compliance cost is about 3.5 million naira. But if they're reactive and Nezra seals their factory for just 30 days, fines and lost revenue cost them 78 million naira. And what if they cause downstream contamination that leads to a community lawsuit? Boom! Litigation and settlement cost 235 million naira. That proactive treatment facility literally pays for itself 13 times over when you compare it to community litigation.
When you break it down by percentage of revenue, the choice is a no-brainer. Proactive compliance is a drop in the bucket, less than half of 1% of that 800 million naira revenue. But a reactive shutdown, that wipes out nearly 10% of their annual revenue in a single catastrophic event. Litigation destroys 29%. Environmental compliance is not a cost center, folks. It is pure, unfiltered risk management.
All right, step 3. Let's apply the framework to Nigerian case studies.
Let's trace the Shell Niger Delta case. The spills began decades ago, right? With Shell officially admitting liability back in 2014. Fast forward to October 2024, and Nigerian communities actually successfully sued the multinational in a UK court. Then, in March 2025, Shell sold its Nigerian subsidiary to Renaissance Africa Energy. But guess what? The timeline of liability didn't stop there.
Here is the absolute kicker. Shell's sale to Renaissance did not erase the legal obligations for the 500,000 barrels of spilled crude. The Bodo community still has a full trial lined up against Renaissance. The hard lesson you've got to remember is that when you buy a company's assets, you buy its environmental liabilities. They do not magically disappear into thin air during a corporate transaction.
Now, on the proactive side, let's look at Dangote Cement. They are highly exposed to biodiversity risks like dust emissions and water extraction, but their ESG response is incredibly robust. Dust suppression systems, ISO 14001 alignment, community tree planting. And let's be real, they aren't doing this just for charity. This is a treasury function. They proactively use ESG to secure access to international bond markets and fiercely protect their operating licenses across host communities.
Next up, step 4. Evaluate friction in local compliance issues.
Remember our guy from Nairoland? He was just one of many. NSREA aggressively initiated criminal enforcement procedures and sealed 96 facilities across Nigeria in 2024 alone. The threat of enforcement isn't just theoretical, it is highly active and very, very real.
But we do have to contrast the ideal academic framework with the messy reality on the ground. For your MViva exams, critically examining these constraints is exactly where you earn those distinction marks. First, there's regulatory capture. Independent investigations found that NOSDRA, the oil and gas regulator, is underfunded and has actually certified cleanups at sites where contamination still persists due to industry influence. Second, SME capital constraints. Most small and medium manufacturers just literally lack the capital and expertise to implement full environmental audits. This enforcement asymmetry, that is a major structural friction you absolutely must evaluate.
And finally, step 5, how to conclude at a distinction level. So, to wrap this up, internalizing these costs proactively is a strategic imperative. By implementing impact assessments and wastewater treatments early, businesses protect their operating licenses, drastically reduce their litigation risks, and unlock access to sustainability-mandated international capital. Businesses that ignore these steps aren't saving money. They are quite literally running on borrowed time. Okay, quick street quiz time. Let's see how well you recall the regulatory architecture we just unpacked. Which agency enforces environmental regulations in Nigeria's non-oil industrial sectors? Is it A, NOSDRA, B, NESRA, C, SEC, or D, CBN? Lock in your guess.
If you went with B, NSREA absolutely spot on. They handle the non-oil sectors and were the ones shutting down those 96 facilities. To recap our core applications today, proactive compliance is pure risk management that prevents massive reactive costs. And analytically, as we saw with the Shell divestment, environmental liabilities always survive corporate sales and outlive ownership changes.
I want to leave you with this final, crucial thought. Whether you are a trader in Balogun Market or a finance student mapping out complex due diligence models, the environment is not separate from your business. It is the very foundation your business sits on. The water your factory uses, the air your workers breathe, it all has a market price when the damage bill finally arrives. The environment will eventually invoice you, and trust me, it always collects with interest.
So I'll leave you pondering this. Have you built environmental liabilities into your business models before the landlord calls? Think about that as you review your own operations. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. I really hope this helps you crush your next strategy topic. See you next time.